Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by. If you're new to my channel, my name is Dan and I am a 41-year-old who is rebuilding his life here in 2026 and documenting it here on YouTube, so you're along for the ride. One of the things I talk about on this channel is nursing school, and in this video I'm going to talk about how much it's costing me to go to nursing school and hopefully give you an idea of what you can expect to pay. Now, my program is part of the university hospital system here in Pittsburgh, and it is a 16-month accelerated program, not a 4-year BSN, so keep that in mind. The cost is going to be way different. I know a lot of the associates programs, like mine, are 16 months, some are 24, but I know at my school, the cost of the 16 and the 24-month programs are exactly the same. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the tuition. So at my school, the tuition cost is $430 per credit. For each term, there is a $1,225 technology fee. And then there's some optional costs, some out-of-pocket stuff, and I've prepared some charts to break this all down. So the first thing I'm going to show you is this sheet that shows my sample curriculum. And you can see it's broken down in each semester. And if you'll notice, the A&P1 and the college writing I am exempt from, and that's because I already took them, so that's going to save me a little time and money, which is awesome. I am also currently taking the lifespan development and the biomedical ethics, so once I have those completed, those will also be knocked off of my schedule. So this breaks down how many credits per class, and I've prepared some charts here. Hopefully these are not too confusing. The key takeaway are the final numbers, so don't get too caught up in these graphs. So the first one here breaks down cost per semester. Now, like I said before, I already had some credits already done, so my cost is going to be different than somebody else that doesn't have those. So these graphs are going to show the low ends and the high ends of what you might expect to pay based on how many credits you need. So for example, the first semester you could either need 12 credits, which everybody has to take, and then some people will also need that A&P1, which is another 4 credits. So for the first semester, you're either going to pay $5,160 or $6,880. And then following left to right, you'll see second, third, and fourth semesters and those cost breakdowns as well. Depending on which classes you need or don't need, there's actually 16 different combinations of outcomes. So I simplified these graphs into the 5 most likely to keep it easy and clear. So in the second graph, you'll see this is the total cost of the program, and you'll see the low end and the high end. So if you have all your supplemental classes already done, you're only going to need 48 credits and pay $20,640. If you need every class, you're going to pay $29,670 for 69 credits. And then I showed you some of the possible outcomes that are in the middle there. So that graph was just tuition credits. I included this other graph here, including the mandatory tech fee, and I threw in the $800 parking because I figured most people are going to be paying that anyways. So that brings the cost up to, at the low end, $23,890, and at the high end, $32,920. Now, given that I'm going to be knocking out 4 classes, I should end up somewhere in the middle there at the $28,620 range. In this chart, I show the out-of-pocket nursing school expenses. Textbooks are going to range anywhere between $500 and $900 depending on if you get the digital or the print versions. I like the idea of having the actual book, but I think I'm just going to go with the digital version to save some money. I'm trying to move to all digital anyways. Uniforms, I already ordered mine. I ended up going with the lower cost options. So I'm spending about $150, but that could have easily been up to $300 if I would have went with the more expensive ones. Parking I already talked about, it's $200 per semester, so that's an $800 total cost for the entire program. They want you to have a newer laptop. They say, I think within the last 3 years, has to be new within the last 3 years. I paid around $300 or $350 for mine back in the fall. So I would say probably about $300 is the cheapest you're going to get away with for a decent laptop. So I put the range at about $300 to $500, depending on what you're going for. Shoes, they want us to have closed-toed white leather. I bought cloves. I can't remember what I paid for them, but I estimated the low end of shoes to be probably $50. I think is probably the cheapest you'll get away with. And then I just bought a pair of Hoka Bondies, which are really nice, but I spent $180 on those plus some insoles. So I put the high end at about $200 for shoes. I already bought a stethoscope. I paid about $110 for mine, but they said the cheaper ones, like $40, $50, are going to be perfectly fine for school. So I put the range at $50 to $120. And then some other supplies like a pen light, bandage scissors, $10 to $30. So at the low end, you're looking at maybe about $1,860 to about $2,850 at the high end for all of the out-of-pocket expenses that you're gonna need. And then they went over stuff with us like housing, gas, food. I didn't include that in this video. That's stuff that we're all gonna need anyways just to survive. So I'm not factoring that into my cost. So all said and done, I'm looking at somewhere between about $25,000 and $30,000 for school. Now, what's cool about my school is, like I mentioned before, my school is part of the university hospital system here in Pittsburgh, and they offer a loan forgiveness program where for every year you sign on to work for them after you graduate, they will pay for one semester of school up to $21,000. So basically $7,000 a semester. You are responsible for your first semester. You have to pay that in full, and then the loan forgiveness sets in. So for me, I took out a loan for the entire thing. I will be responsible to pay back my first semester, which I had a balance of about $1,800 out of pocket that I have to pay. And then if I do decide to take advantage of the loan forgiveness program, I will sign a contract year to year, up to 3 years, and they'll pay for up to 3 semesters of school. So that brings my total out-of-pocket expense down to the $1,800 that I was responsible to pay, and then I have to pay back the balance of that first semester's loan, if that makes sense, which comes out to be probably another $5,000 or $6,000. So I have about 9 more weeks until I start school, and if this video was of any help to you, please consider liking and subscribing. I'd love to hear some comments. And if you're somebody starting nursing school or rebuilding their life, especially 40 or over, I think you might like this channel. Check out some of my other videos. See you in the next one.